In, guys, to the 304 podcast, coming at you live tonight here on YouTube and Facebook. Guys, if you haven't already, go ahead, hit that subscription button. Be sure to share. We're at almost 1,000 subscriptions. We appreciate everybody for tuning in. I want to start doing a live show here every once in a while just to kind of get you guys involved. I'm going to take a minute here and share the link here on YouTube. Guys, I hope everybody's having a good evening. Tonight we're going to talk kind of a multitude of subjects. Particularly, I want to talk realignment. We've got some guys coming on throughout the evening to kind of talk about different things. Realignment, North Carolina quarterback battle. We're going to talk a little Sooner football. So, guys, hang around, leave your comments and questions in the chat. And, if you know me personally and you're friends with me on Facebook, you want to come on and talk, send me a message on there. We'll get you on. We run through StreamYard, so it's as simple as clicking a button and you'll be in. Just be sure to include what you want to talk about. Guys, it's kind of interesting. I was reading an article earlier today from the Big Ten from an author, Joey Mistoretta. It was put out the other day on Clutch Points, but he was talking about conference expansion in the Big Ten, and how everybody knows, Oregon, Cal, Stanford, and Washington are supposedly in talks or looks at the Big Ten. But I thought the way the Big Ten commissioner addressed that was kind of interesting. I think sometimes words can say a lot. Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, said from an expansion standpoint, the answer is we're not in the market, but we're always looking for what makes sense. I think kind of what we're seeing with the rumor mill running is, I think that's on purpose. I think the Big Ten, the SEC, probably the Big 12, there's been a lot of misinformation, a lot of just blatant falsehoods, and a lot of rumors going around. And I think that's because everybody's trying to be hush-hush. I think that we really don't know what's going to happen next. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when the new Big 12 commissioner takes his position on August 1st. I look for August 1st to have some fireworks. We're just talking Monday. I think there will be a big announcement hit on Monday, personally. I've been saying that for the last couple of weeks. I think they're waiting on him to come in before they make any announcements. Let's see. Before I get too deep into it, let's see. Tim says, bring me on, baby. Well, make sure, guys, that you like and share. Go on YouTube and hit that thumbs up button. That's how you get out in the algorithm. If you don't click that thumbs up, then it doesn't help push the content out. I'm going to bring Tim on, then Marcus, you come on, and then we'll bring McFly on. And we'll just kind of see how this works out, guys. Be sure to share the crap out of it. Tag people on it. We need some viewership for this to make live shows, worth their time. Plus, I don't know who else is live right now. That could be a big part of it too. But all right, Tim, invites coming, buddy, on Facebook. Like I said, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're somebody I know, you want to come on and talk football, shoot me a message. We'll get you on. We can talk whatever you want to talk about. All right. There you go, Timbo. But I think him wording it that way, I think, my question is why bring in, I get Oregon and Stanford, Washington, these in-state schools are gonna stick together. It seems like to try to get in um, to like the Big Ten or the SEC. But I mean, until the ACC, something happens with the ACC, I wouldn't be adding teams that diminish your conference brand until I would see what's going to happen. Because, what happens if you fill up on 20 teams and you only go to 20, and then somebody like Notre Dame starts talking going into a conference, and then you don't want to bid yourself out of something like that happening. But it's interesting. Tim's going to come on. He's an Ohio State fan, Big Ten guy, and he's going to talk a little bit about the teams he'd like to see come on. I think he's about to pop in here in just a minute. Guys, be sure to share, like, and if you're a new watcher, hit that subscribe button. We need all the subs we can get. Yeah, there's Tim. Let me, before I bring you in, buddy, I'm going to pull this up. I want to share. You guys, be sure to share us on Facebook. Take it to your Twitter, put it on your Facebook, put it everywhere. Once I get this up, I'm going to bring Tim on, and we will chat. All right, there we go. All right, without any further ado, welcome to the show, Coach Tim. Tim.
Hey there, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Let me put my headset in because I forgot to do that. All right, hopefully there we go. Wait a minute. Let me change it. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Good deal. What's going on, buddy?
Man, just chilling tonight. No practice tonight. Coach gave the kids today, tomorrow, Sunday off to get ready for August 3rd. The real crap hits the fan.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. I remember back to those days playing high school football and the nervous energy you get, the butterflies in your stomach for that first real day of practice where, you're about to be ran till you die and then you still might die. And
yeah, two then did too, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We did in the morning and the afternoon or in the evening. For 2 weeks, yeah. And we had coaches that would, I ain't going to go there, but, what do you think? How are you enjoying being around the kids and stuff down there? Like, does it remind you of like your playing days?
There are certain aspects of it. Definitely, it's some of those linemen who aren't really well conditioned. They're coming up with every excuse after just running 3 sprints. I've been there a little bit. Sometimes you don't want to run sprints. Sometimes you do. And as a lineman, I guess you never want to run sprints ever. That's not what we're built for, but you have to anyway. But no, just sitting there and watching it, it's really taken me back 20 some years ago.
I'm sure.
But it's like the kids are they're nice young men. They really are. They show up every day, and then just getting to know them individually. I know a handful, but I don't know all of them yet. So, but I'm getting there. But they're a good bunch of kids. They really are.
Well, good, man. I look forward to seeing how your season progresses. Coaching's fun to a degree. High school's fun. You don't have to deal with the parents quite as badly as you do when they're little tiny guys. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about, you're a Big Ten fan. You're an Ohio State fan.
Yep.
What was your initial thoughts when USC and UCLA joined the Big Ten? Like, Did you feel like that was a good ad, or did you feel like it kind of watered down the conference?
It surprised me at first. I don't think necessarily it watered it down because we have the Rutgers in Maryland. No, I mean that's no offense, but USC coming to the Big Ten, that's huge.
Yeah,
that's really huge. UCLA, yeah, if you want to, I really don't care about them. But yeah, but I mean, it'll be a nice addition. I mean, UCLA would be a nicer addition than the Rutgers or Maryland, but I see no problem with it. I mean, those fan bases in the Big Ten travel very well, especially with Ohio State. If you have to go out west and play a game, that's not a problem like it is mostly probably in the Big 12. The fan base and at least in Ohio, they'll follow them to hell and back if they have to.
Well, I mean, I think, UCLA, I think the only reason UCLA got in was because USC was like, we're a package deal. I'm sure that's how that went. And now they're talking, Oregon, Stanford, Washington, and, Colorado or Utah to the Big Ten. What do you think about that? Do you think that the Big Ten needs to add any of those teams? Is there an immediate add, or should they kind of hang back and wait to see what happens with the ACC as well?
First of all, I think all those schools academically are wonderful. Stanford is huge. I like Oregon just because of the brand they have, the market there. Just Oregon is the Pac-12. I like. I would bring them in instantly. I think. I mean, you put an application, you're hired. That's that for me. Utah, I don't mind Utah either. Really, they're up on the upcome, and they're a rabid dog after chasing after a bone. Man, they're a hard knock kind of team. And God, I haven't seen Glenn in a while. What's up, Glenn? Hey, baby. Yeah, so I don't see any teams that I would, if it was me, I really would just sit back and kind of feel things out. Because, like I said, Stanford's great, USC is great, UCLA, University of California, located in Los Angeles, and Stanford and Oregon. That'd be great to the Big Ten.
Well, I think the Big Ten, the Big Ten's put themselves in a position, in my eyes, and I know a lot of people may not agree with this, but they put themselves in a position to outpace the SEC, in growth and the teams they're adding and stuff. I just wonder if you add too many big Pac-12 teams, does it dilute the conference a little bit? When I think personally that the ACC, I think it's a matter of time before the teams decide they want to leave. And, people talk about that grant of rights and all of that, but that's all breakable. Like it can happen. There are clauses. The ACC is not as safe as people think it is. And as I said before you come on, the Big 12, when their new commissioner takes office August 1st, I'm looking for an announcement on that day. They've been too quiet to not have something going on. Now, if you were going to pick say 2 or 3 ACC teams that you'd like to see in the Big Ten, who would that be?
Ooh, oh, wow, God. Duke.
Got to give Maryland and Rutgers a little competition.
yeah, that's a good. God, Duke.
Probably take North Carolina if you're going to take Duke. Might as well take them both.
You might as well. Yeah, I keep forgetting about them. And they're just right down the road. Yeah, and then I would take Florida. No, I would take Florida State. Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's a lot to chew on because I mean, the future of the ACC is a little
I think the future of the ACC. I mean, I just think that there's going to come a point where Clemson and Miami and Florida State. I mean, they're the big brands. I think there's going to be a time where they're just like, okay, we're gonna move on to bigger and better things, and then the Big 10, the Big 12 are going to pick up a few teams apiece. I mean, all you have to do is have 8 commits to leave them, to dissolve them the grant of rights, and they can dissolve it and they can do whatever they want without having that big buyout and surrendering all their money to the ACC. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Now, if I was going to put 3 teams in the Big 10 from the ACC, I would probably say, honestly, Pitt. Even though brand wise they're good, like the revenue's not the greatest, and their fan base is kind of atrocious. I mean, that would actually, I think that would could help them actually rebrand a little bit. And I think that would actually be really good for them in the long run. But then I would probably say Duke and UNC, because I think those schools want to focus more on academics anyway.
You take away from the Duke football team away from Duke, and that doesn't hurt the school whatsoever. They are not a football school. That is a basketball school. UNC, it's more basketball. It's also that they love their UNC football as well, but it's still a basketball school. But Duke, honestly, Duke can survive without football.
Glenn says, "How's it going, bro?"
Going well, going very well. I'm down in North Carolina now, Glenn. He
left me. But no, realignment, football realignment's the big topic right now. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's speculating.
It really is like, hey, I want to see this here or this there, and it's fun. It's like making up your draft bracket, like your draft conference or something.
Well, I know for me, because I haven't talked much about what I would actually like to see. I look at speculations and I speculate and I deduce things, but I don't ever just say this is what I'd like to see.
Right.
So I'm going to do that for a second. I'm going to talk Big 12 and what I would like to actually see happen in the Big 12. I would actually like to see the Big 12 add Arizona and Utah. Because I think they fit the Big 12 mentality and brand very well. And then if the ACC would ever kind of dissolve, I'd like to see Louisville, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech in the Big 12 at the least. I could put a couple more teams in there if they're there. But I would like to see the Big 12 get aggressive with some of the teams and just start. I don't know. I'm ready for it all to blow up because I think that's the direction it's headed in.
What about Cincinnati? Or you think they're more fit for the ACC?
Well, I mean, Cincinnati's already committed to the Big 12, so, I mean I thought there for a long time. I figured that these additions to the Big 12 would never go through. I figured that the Big 12 would end up folding. Cincinnati would, I figured the ACC would do what the Big 12's done, and they'd be like, hey, Cincinnati. Hey, West Virginia. Hey, Central Florida. Hey, Houston. Come on in, and we're going to expand. And the ACC has screwed themselves by not doing anything. And I just have a feeling that they're not going to make it through it because of that. The Pac-12 waited too long, but also with the Pac-12, who do you add? You lose USC and UCLA, and if you lose, say you only lose Oregon and Stanford, I mean, you can't fill those gaps with Hawaii and San Diego State and Fresno State.
Yeah.
I mean, it just Colorado, like it just doesn't compute. You're not going to be a P5 conference. Now you'd still be an interesting conference, but you're not a Power 5 conference. And there's a lot of people that argue that the Pac-12 ain't been relevant in so long. They're not a Power 5 conference anyway.
Right.
I think if the Big Ten had been able to go in and get USC and Oregon at the beginning. If USC hadn't saved UCLA and got those two, the Pac-12 would already be dissolved. I mean, already, because then you're not holding on to anything. And something else the teams are going to have to watch for in expansion too is over-expanding. When you've got teams like, if you think the ACC is going to fold, and you have teams like Clemson, Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame kind of floating around out there, you don't want to overexpand and bid yourself out of a chance to bring them in, because Notre Dame is probably the biggest brand in the country, honestly. And if you could get them in, if the Big 12 could get them in, or the ACC, then the whole conversation will shift. But I honestly look for Notre Dame to be in the Pac-10 or the Big 10. It makes the most sense.
It seems like they're just laying there and wait, just sitting down everything. They're playing around with everybody. That's what they're doing. They're playing around with everybody.
Well, they're probably the only school in college football that can.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other school that could be independent and just wait. Nah, we're just going to wait. Yeah. I mean, it's very ballsy, and I think it's going to pay off for them in the end. I mean, at the end of the day, Notre Dame, they need to make, I think, about $75 million from their TV package to stay independent. I just don't look. It'd be hard. I think it'd be hard to give them that amount with it just being them.
Yeah. Yeah. They're their own entity, man.
Yeah.
They really are. I mean, could you say that's what the ACC is kind of doing? Is kind of laying down and just, are they saying something that we're not, or that's coming in on the front of the storm or the backside of the storm and going to surprise everybody? I mean, it's possible.
Well, I mean, the Notre Dame has the ability to pick who lives and who dies.
Right.
Because I think if, say, for instance, Notre Dame went crazy and joined the Pac-12, you're automatically going to see the Pac-12 hitting up Big 12 schools that fit and trying to pull them out of the Big 12. And then you'd see the ACC pulling up the rest, and then they would fracture the Big 12. Like, I think Notre Dame has it in their power to determine who lives and who dies. Whoever they join is going to take an automatic bump. I mean, it's an automatic bump. Your conference is just better for having them in it.
Yeah, Notre Dame's. I mean, whoever they join, you still think they're going to keep some kind of independent status of a sort? Or that's going to be in the contract? Like, yeah, we'll be here in this conference, but we still want to be.
I don't think there'll be room for that, to be honest with you. I think they're going to have to play so many games in conference. And, if they wanted to schedule all the ACC teams out of conference games, they could do that. But I think there's going to have to come a point where Notre Dame commits to how they're going to schedule themselves. I mean, they've never done that. And their schedule's always pretty tough, but including the service academies and stuff like that diminishes their schedule a lot.
Okay.
And the fact that most years where they have such a tradition that they struggle with them to some degree. And I just think that to be relevant moving forward with the SEC and the Big Ten being what it is, Notre Dame is going to have to go where the big names are. That's why I think they're going to be in the Big Ten, because in the Big Ten they'll still be special. If in the SEC, that they will not be at all. So if you want to remain your shiny Notre Dame, I think joining the Big Ten is the best solution for you.
Plus, it'll make them better, honestly.
Well, I mean, the teams they could schedule, Michigan State, you still schedule USC and UCLA, Ohio State, Penn State. I mean, they could schedule some whopper of games. Like, I mean, really, really. And they could still schedule, a couple of service academies and an ACC team or two if they wanted to. But I mean, I just think the time's going to run out on the independents. I think if you remain independent, you won't have a shot at playing for a national championship. You just won't.
Right.
You shouldn't at that. I don't think you should even have the opportunity because there's no schedule you're going to be able to make that's going to be as hard as what Ohio State's playing, what Alabama's playing. It's just going to be too hard to schedule it.
Notre Dame's proved 2 or 3 times before that they've never been in the championship or in the playoffs, just because everybody knew they were posing. But even years ago, Sammy, a long time ago, I always thought that Notre Dame would be a great fit for the Big Ten. Honestly, just because even back when we were, I was a teenager, I thought this is be better. I mean, because you're in that area anyway. It's that geographic area. You're there already, so.
Well, and I agree. I mean, it makes the most. It really makes the most sense. But who would have ever thought USC and UCLA would be in the Big Ten?
No, yeah, I didn't see that coming at all. I mean, I'll welcome it. That's fine. That's cool because, like you and I have talked about, I think USC is going to be that dark horse, man, that people are not going to see coming. With Lincoln Riley there, because Lincoln Riley's a really great coach. And he's a good coach.
Well, guys, this is the 304 podcast here on YouTube and Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that freaking subscribe button. We need subs. We need to hit 1,000 really bad. Guys, we're going to bring in Marcus Dean. Let me get him in here. Tim, you're welcome to hang around as long as you want.
He does the 304 sign language thing he's been doing lately.
Say that again.
I hope he does the little 304 sign language thing he's been doing on your sides.
No, I'm not going to make no comments. Marcus Dean, if you're listening, buddy, here's your invite. Come join us.
Yeah, boy. I'll tell you what, the future of college, the college football landscape, it's freaking wide open. I mean, it's going to be exciting. We never thought we would get to this point where we would see something like this because we always have SEC, ACC, Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, stuff like that. But we never in a million years do we see this going.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's crazy how much football has changed in such a short amount of time. In just the last 2 years. I mean, it is it's insane. And honestly, like as a football fan, it's a little bit scary because you don't know what's going to happen. You really don't. And there are people that think that they have a good handle on what's actually going to happen, and the truth is you really don't. You don't know what's going to happen. I was afraid West Virginia was going to be left out of the talks, just because the direction it was going, and then the Big 12. I think the big saving thing there was hiring a new commissioner and hiring the guy they hired. All right. I'm going to do one thing, and I'm going to bring you in, Marcus. I'm working on analytics here.
No more is it like old traditional college football landscape anymore. You just have to get used to your team. If your team's USC or whatever playing in another conference, and that's going to take a year to get used to that, and then more.
Yeah, I mean it
will be like it never happened.
I mean, and that's the thing is I think it's going to take a little bit more time to get used to, because I think we're going to lose some traditions that we all have come to know and love, and that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard to lose, especially like if Pitt or if Virginia Tech would join the SEC and Pitt would join the Big Ten. West Virginia may never really play them again. Not. I mean, they might schedule it every once in a while like they have been, but it's not going to be like what it should be or what it was in the past. Marcus Dean, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in the one, the only Marcus Dean.
What is up, people? What is going on tonight?
What's going on, buddy?
What is going on?
What do you want to talk about, Marcus? You said
Well,
you want
today,
to come on. What are we chatting about?
Since you know me, the man of the ACC guru, as you like to call, our first ACC team opened up fall ball today. The UNC Tar Heels opened up their fall camp today.
Yep, and I've already heard the big story there is the battle of the quarterbacks.
Yes, battle of the quarterback. We got Jacoby Criswell taking on Drake May. And they're going to do name a starter 10 days prior to the first game on the 25th against Florida A&M. So the season is approaching mighty quick, boys.
Well, was there any indication from Coach Brown about who's ahead, or is it pretty even?
As of right now, today they ran their 7-on-7 specials. They ran. Everybody got Drake May and Jacoby Criswell got equal reps with the 1s and 2s in today's practice. They was flat head to head. Nobody jumped out right away. And I think it's going to go a little bit longer into practice. But I think in the end, I think Jacoby Criswell is going to take it because I think he has a little bit better arm. He's more meatier to take the beating that Sam Howell took last year, but there ain't nobody ever going to be able to take a beating like Sam Howell did last year and survive. But I think Jacoby Criswell ends up winning your quarterback, even though people think I'm crazy on the Carolina message boards. But there is something that I like about Jacoby Criswell. Throws a nice deep ball. They have at the slew of running backs. They have British Brooks that's coming back, who played very, very, very well down the stretch last year. George Pettaway is an awesome true freshman coming in from Suffolk, Virginia, and got several talented players in the state of Virginia, and some very talented players there in North Carolina. Is going to be making up your main roster next year for the Tar Heels, and they got a pretty lax schedule. They're out of conferences as Florida A&M. They do play out of conference Notre Dame. They do play out of conference Georgia State. So, they have some time to get ready for Notre Dame because that's going to be their first test.
Well, I know we've deep dived them and talk a lot about them. I think the Tar Heels, in my eyes, without Sam Howell, they're just not going to be the same team at all. You don't replace that kind of grit and drive.
No, you don't.
In a year, it's going to be an interesting year. I like Mac Brown. I think he's doing good things, but I think they're still out. They're still on the outs.
My thing is Mac Brown has to start hitting on all these recruits because over the last 3 years, they constantly brought in top 15 recruiting classes. Some of these talented kids have to start hitting now because they're going into their redshirt sophomore years or true sophomores. Things have got to start clicking. That's why they brought in Gene Chizik to run the defense, to shape the defense back up into what it was. And that's his main reason for coming back and getting back into coaching football was to kind of revamp them. And Phil Longo on the offensive side of the ball has a big test ahead of him. But they still got one of the best receivers in the country in Josh Downs. So whichever quarterback comes back, it's going to have Josh Downs to lean on this year. In my opinion, he should be the ACC Player of the Year. I mean, not pumping him up because he's a Carolina boy, but he's talented enough to be the ACC Player of the Year since Jordan Addison took his NIL money and went to USC. Supposedly, as we like to say, supposedly went to USC because of he wanted to up his draft stock, but he could have done that at Pitt last year. But I digress.
Well, it's interesting. That's the thing. Some of these teams, and that's what I'm struggling with. Like, because I have to look at everything so objectively. Like, and it's so hard to look at college football now and not see where you are in the pecking order. You know what I mean? Like, the Big Ten and the SEC have clearly showed
exactly
who's at the top of the pecking order, who's at the bottom.
Exactly. Yeah, the Big Ten and the SEC, and we've talked previously about this. The Big 12 and the SEC is leading the way, and unfortunately, we don't know how it's going to go yet. But the writing's on the wall. The proof is in the pudding. We shall see.
Well, I think some of these teams. And good examples of them, Duke, UNC, Virginia, Stanford, those kind of schools taking on $80 million, $100 million TV contracts.
Yep.
And I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again because I really do believe that. I really think they're going to be hesitant to do that because you are a endowment schools. You get hundreds of millions of dollars from federal endowments, probably billions of dollars. I know like there's a Stanford one that's crazy, like $3 billion or something. I mean, do you really want to put $100 million a year into your football program when your athletics is a bonus to your academics?
Right. Well, in the case of UNC, I think UNC would do that because UNC has an excellent basketball program. They've won multiple national championships, as we've seen in the year. They have the Jordan brand there. I think UNC, out of those ones you just mentioned, would take that risk. And, because they're all about, I hate to say this, as I went down there last year, they're more of a football school, and basketball is kind of put on the basketball is like a 1B. And the football is 1A down there. It depends on who you talk to, but it's all about football since Mac Brown's coming back.
Well, I still think they're still a good ways out with their football program being, being they're in the middle of the ACC.
At best, in the middle of the ACC right now.
And I don't know. I just think there's going to be some of these schools that are going to be really hesitant to jump into these big contracts because it's not going to mean anything to them academically to make all that money. It's just more investment in facilities and players and developing NIL. Like Virginia Tech, who would have thought Virginia Tech would just all of a sudden create a NIL
spectacle?
And like out of nowhere, like it's like, oh, Virginia Tech just created an NIL group, and it's like
NIL Collective, Triumph. I mean, I didn't see that one coming. Had a friend of mine who's close with the university, close to the program, sent me a little message. He said, "Watch out for this in the next couple of days." And lo and behold, I was going through Twitter one day, and wow, and there they have NIL deal. I mean. And Brent Pry has said it on many times. He wants the student athletes to make money. He wants them to make profit off their name, image, and likeness, but he wants them to do it the right way. It has to be done the right way, not because you're not going to come to Virginia Tech just because you want a special NIL pack.
Right. Well, I think teams are going to start seeing the writing on the walls, and they know they're going to have to create NIL groups, or they're just going to fall to the wayside. And, I still think these academic schools and some of the service academies and stuff, I think that's part of Notre Dame, once you commit, you're committed, and that may not be the direction you want to go in. I mean, imagine if, teams like Notre Dame, Stanford, Virginia, North Carolina, Duke, all the service academies, Fresno State, and all those guys got together and they're like, we're just going to make our own little our own little conference because we don't want to deal with the Big Ten or the SEC. That they may not want to. Like I know that's kind of silly, like a silly thought, but I mean, I think
I mean, it's not that far fetched, to be honest with you. It really isn't. It's really not that far fetched.
But, and then of course, me and Tim were talking. I don't know if you got to watch or not. We were talking expansion and expansion news. Is there anything new that you've heard this afternoon or evening?
Not as of yet. I think everything's kind of laying in the weeds right now. But I think when the Big 12, I'll agree with what you said earlier. I think when the Big 12 commissioner officially takes office, I think he's going to announce something. I think something's going to be announced that day, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's the addition of Utah and Arizona. I keep hearing chirping about that, keep seeing different things about that, but I would not be surprised to see if it's not Utah and Arizona being added to the Big 12. Rather.
Well, I know Golden Blue Dude, and I can't verify this. Now I know he's got some reach that I don't have, but I mean he's talked about Colorado and Arizona both have applied to the Big 12, and that that being true, I think it's funny that Colorado would apply to the Big 12
after they call them a JUCO league.
After they call them a JUCO league, I find that kind of odd.
Yeah, I do too.
Because I can verify that they called them a JUCO league. I can't verify that they actually submitted
an application for it. Yeah, I concur. I really concur with that. I mean, because why would you call something? That's like saying
Tim, are you muted?
No, I don't think so.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
It's like telling you saying Tim's beard's crooked.
Is it?
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's very crooked, man.
Colorado going, oh, we're sorry, let us in.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, I would much rather bring Utah in than Colorado.
Exactly.
I mean, honestly,
Colorado has nothing to bring that isn't 30 years old.
Colorado has a really good fan base. They have really good revenue. People sleep on the amount of people that actually watch Colorado games.
Yep.
It's like it's like second or third highest in the Pac-12.
I could see that, and I could really see that, but I don't know. It's just nothing to me that I can. As I'm a football dictionary, I can't think of anything good that's come from Colorado in 30 years, except for Rasad Salam and Cordell Stewart, and and the magnificent Hail Mary against Michigan. That's the only thing I can think of from Colorado.
Well, their weed laws are good.
Yeah. I used to live in Colorado, but as a studio show. But
well, guys, this is the 304 podcast here on Facebook and YouTube. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit it. Hit it.
Do your thing, Mark.
Oh yeah, 3.
I want to see if we can bring in. Where's he at?
McFly.
Let me see if we can get him in here and talk a little. His perspective is going to be interesting because he's an Oklahoma fan. They really have no interest in how this is all playing out now because they're in the SEC. That's really all that matters.
Yeah, they give 2 squirts.
So I'm going to send him the link, see if he comes in. Guys, if you're watching and you want to come on, leave us a message. I will try to bring you on. We can talk football. Guys, make sure to leave questions. If you want to talk about any specific team or whatever, man, we will talk about whatever. We like to talk about anything football.
Exactly. One question I keep on hearing that Tennessee keeps on with Spire Sports, keeps on funding these private jets for recruits to be coming in to take their official visits. I mean, are we getting stacks of McDonald's cash again because they just got hit with 18 different Class X sanctions from the NCAA?
Well, and I don't think there's going to be a whole lot come out of that.
No, I mean they might lose some scholarships, and they're not going to take a postseason ban. They're not going to take. I think they'll just pay a fine and get some scholarships reduction.
If it hadn't been in the period of NIL, I would feel differently. But
Yeah.
with the period of time that we're in now, like holding teams responsible for that stuff now is silly.
No, the NCAA has no jurisdiction anymore to hold anybody accountable for NIL and everything like that. So, okay. Let me pose you guys a question.
Okay.
I just thought of this. Is NIL cheating? Is it taking away from the game? I mean, granted, we want these players to even though I teeter about this because you're getting free education, you're getting free room and board, you're getting a lot of free amenities. You get a free education where a lot of folks are not admitted to get that free education. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence at this. What do you boys think?
Good question. Do we think it's taken away from the game? Yeah. Now, I think it is just because it's new to everybody. So not a lot of people are looking at it that way as far as taking away from the game or devaluing the game. I think so, just because right now it's so wide open.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some structure built into it.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll start seeing a lot of better differences. But right now, with that kind of money going to these young kids who haven't even stepped foot on a college field yet.
Yeah.
If you have that kind of money and you're an adolescent,
Mm-hmm.
your brain's still developing, even until you're 24. I'm not saying this for everybody, but a lot of the times, mostly, you're going to see a lot of things, some bad juju come out of that, bad decisions, doing this with the money. I don't know how to handle this. You got rookies in the NFL don't know how to handle their contracts. And you'll see that with college players as well too, but especially high school kids. I mean, it's going to breed trouble, really, because that's what money does.
Yeah.
But until there are some stipulations, and I don't mean kind of like NCAA kind of strictness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some money here or there, not all, or some, however they do it now. I think you'll see it, or it is taken away from the game a little bit, and I think it's going to take a lot more. You're going to see it take a lot more down the future.
And I kind of stand on the opposite side of that. I think the only reason we feel that way is because it's just starting.
Yeah.
As a West Virginia fan, I'm on the outs. As a Virginia Tech fan, you're on the outs. As an Ohio State fan, see, you are in the unique position where NIL doesn't really bother you.
Yeah.
Because your brand is so big.
You're still going to get
whether you're paying your guys or not through NIL deals, it's not going to affect you.
Yeah.
And there are teams like Alabama, Georgia, A&M that I'm not going to put A&M out there because they've paid a lot of money out. But
$25 million.
But what I mean is they're going to be able to get kids on their name alone. That. Like, if I can go to Ohio State, I'm going to Ohio State. NIL deal comes in second. But the kids that would come to Ohio State that only want to focus on the NIL deal probably ain't going to want to come to Ohio State anyway. Does that make sense? Right. And that's why you see these kids, and I don't want to dog anybody because I'm all for NIL, all for it. Let it get crazy. But teams like Tennessee, teams like Miami, maybe they're building a recipe on how to buy yourself back into relevance.
I thought about that too.
And that to me is more interesting than anything because when you have such a blue blood league as college football is, if you have teams that can buy themselves into the conversation, you open the doors to actually having Cinderella teams.
Yeah.
Something, Cincinnati last year was not a Cinderella team. We
No,
all knew
no.
what was going to happen in that game. Even though if you go back and watch the video, I was a little bit kooky about the way I predicted it. I kind of just went with my heart, not with my head. And, I do that from time to time. But, some teams are going to be able to buy themselves in. And I don't know that that's such a bad thing because that keeps those blue blood programs
in check.
honest.
Well, I think about in Tennessee's aspect of it over the last 10 to 12 years. Tennessee has been in the middle pecking order of the SEC Eastern Division.
And into McFly.
McFly!
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
What's up, buddy? You doing all right?
I'm doing good, I had to come out to the car to do this because, as y'all know, my son is off the bottle this week, so I'm having to make sure we don't wake him up.
Okay. Well, welcome
Well,
into the show. Our live
we were just chatting
show.
a little bit about NIL. I figured you'd want to weigh in a little bit on that. Marcus had proposed the question: do you think that NIL deals are going into the cheating category that's taking away something from football? Tim says yes, and I say, not so much. What's your opinion on that?
It's a very gray line. It's a very gray line. It's hard to cheat when it's not regulated. I mean, like coaches, they're allowed to talk about NIL when it comes to recruiting. Like if they're going to talk to a recruit wherever, if they're on an official visit, they're allowed to talk about NIL deals. They can't discuss or they can't they can't negotiate deals, but they can talk about NIL opportunities. So it's a very gray line, and it's not cheating unless it's absolutely in the black of the line. But A&M, they didn't know they could cheat, but goddamn, I hate them for it. But NIL sucks, man. NIL sucks for the smaller schools. It really does. It really.
Well, I was just sorry, Smart. I was just answering the question like, is it taken away from the sport like a little bit? I think it's taken away from it a little bit. Now, as cheating, how can you cheat when there's no regulations? Really, kind of
Yeah, it's taken away from college football. It really is. It's like college football. College football has a certain feel to it. It's not, but it's always been bought, but it actually hasn't always been bought. If y'all know what I mean. I mean, it's always been a little bit pure. It's been a little bit pure high school football, but I mean, like college football, it's always been a little bit more prideful.
Right.
And it's bought.
Well, and I think it's nice to rip the mask off of it though.
Yeah.
Because we all, college football, has been pure and blah, blah, all of that. But when you really start breaking it down and you go back to, 80s, early 90s Miami and all that, like it's not as pure. It was just very well hidden or not talked about. And when you rip the mask off of it, this is what we actually get to see it for what it actually is.
Yeah. Well, and I think about, you talked about smaller schools. Who would have thought that Virginia Tech would have came up with an NIL collective agreement with Tech Triumph? I mean, who would have thought? Or not Tech Triumph, but Tech something or other. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Every school needs to come up with some kind of collective. Like if they're not trying to come up with one, they're failing.
Yeah.
And they have to try to come up with one. And even if it doesn't even get them that much, it's still something. I mean, they're trying.
Yeah,
that's the important part. I think that's the most important part of it. There is these teams. Clemson's a really good example of that because Dabo is
absolutely refuses to do anything about it.
Against the NIL. Yeah, and that's the thing is like if you're that hard set against it.
And they're still recruiting great.
And you're still recruiting great. Can you keep Clemson's kind of a misnomer because I think Oklahoma and Ohio State, like I said, they don't have to focus as much on the NIL.
No, they're brand names.
Their brands are so big that
but
you take a big brand and you put a big NIL with it, and I mean you get A&M. That's basically what's happened there.
Well, and it's a talent gap closer too, if you think about it too, because years ago, I mean, A&M for the past 10 years have been competitive and they've been doing well, winning bowl games and 8, 9, 10-1 seasons. But over the last 3 years, they're starting to close the gap. They beat Bama last year, and the year before that, they won the Orange Bowl over a very talented UNC team. And you got to think too, they're closing the gap. And now this past year, they got the #1 recruiting class in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't tell me that all 12 of those 5 stars that they got are going to be bust.
They've had the best class in the history of any, or
yeah,
like the best class ever
since 247 started counting.
It's so funny though, because I'm totally guilty of this too. But it's so funny to think about how we measure a team's success or how they're going to be next year based on who they beat the year before. Like we look at A&M and be like, they beat Bama, and it's like they barely beat Bama.
True.
You could say it was, I don't want to say it was a fluke, but you could make that argument that it was, that Jimbo Fisher, blind dog found a blind squirrel found a nut. Like you could make those arguments, and it's like the measure of success is still Alabama. Like they didn't win the national championship, and the measure is still Alabama. Like I think as football aficionados, I think we've got to start getting away from that a little bit and quit putting us up against an impossible measuring stick, because you're not just going through the Saban era. You got to go back to Bear Bryant, the 20s, and all that stuff. Like they've been a national powerhouse since the 1920s. 100 years later, they're still doing it. Like, let's not measure ourselves against an impossible measuring stick.
Exactly. I mean, the Bear Bryant came to Alabama in 1958, and he was there all the way until 1982. So, and he won, 6 national championships. Then, you have other teams, and that in the 80s is where Alabama fell off, and through the middle 90s. But then Saban come knocking in 2007 and brought him back.
I mean, it's the teams that are really on the come up are the ones. That's a good. Let's talk about that for a minute. What teams do you think are legitimately? You're fine, dude. What teams do you guys feel are legitimately? We'll start with Tim on the come up. What team have you watched in the last year or two that you have seen that you say they really are on the come up? Say that again.
The Louisiana Mud Dogs.
With Bobby Boucher.
Time Bobby Boucher came in at halftime, Louisiana Bulldogs all time.
How about that time when Bobby Boucher showed up at halftime and the Mud Dogs won the Bourbon Bowl? What you think about that?
I mean, honestly, I think the top team on the come up, I mean, we've all talked about them. We've seen it. It's got to be Miami right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think they are legitimately on the come up.
Yeah.
What about you, McFly? What team, aside from Miami, kind of sticks out to you that you just kind of notice? It's like they're really doing some good things.
Oh, outside of Miami, because Miami would have been mine. I mean, A&M just had the best class ever, and they're just 1 year removal from just a 1-loss year. So I don't like A&M. I hate them so much. I hate Jimbo. But I'd have to go with A&M.
Marcus.
There's so many different ways you could go with this, but and because of all the deep dives we've done and all the things that we've seen, honestly, and y'all are probably gonna be shaking your head at me when I say this. I'm gonna give you 2. There's a 1A and a 1B. The 1B we're gonna see this year is Auburn. I mean, everybody in the world.
You had to say that and steal my thunder.
But Auburn to me is one of those teams. It's laying in the weeds, and they finally got their shit together, and they finally let their coach Brian Harsin be their coach. I mean, the players went to bat for him, and they're 1B. And after doing a lot of research on them here recently, they're going to be scary good. And the other team is good old Rocky Top. Woo! Paying that money left and right.
I'll tell you a team that I think's on the come up, and it's not because I'm some Homer fan, because y'all know me better than that.
Oh Lordy!
I really do believe West Virginia is trending in a direction that's going to get them back to a, maybe not this year, but within the next probably 3 or 4 years, they're going to be a 11 to 12 win team.
All right, so you're telling me now? Hold on, are you telling me now that you're a Graham Harrell believer?
It's not necessarily that I'm a Graham Harrell believer. It's kind of it's kind of a mix of what they put together, and what the one thing that kind of gets me with it all is, I like Neil Brown. I've lost a lot of faith in Neil Brown's offensive prowess. So, he brings in Graham Harrell. I'm not a huge fan, but it's better than what we had.
Yeah.
Offensive line coach.
Yeah.
I've never been a big fan of Matt Moore, but this year, it's his year to put up or shut up. They've got a great offensive line coming back. This year,
all right, hold on. Forgive my ignorance. Is this the Matt Moore? Matt Moore? Is this
No.
Matt Moore of the Miami Dolphins?
No. Different one.
Different
Oh,
one.
okay, gotcha.
Quarterback coach in Nola.
Their
That's what I thought about. I
defensive,
was like, oh my god, I didn't know that.
well, West Virginia's defensive line is going to be as good as it's ever been. Their D-backs are a little suspect because they've hit the portal up hard for those, but you kind of know what you're getting to a degree when you're bringing players in through the portal.
Yep.
I think, and the reason I say this with West Virginia being on the come up is if Graham Harrell can come in and do what he did at USC. I think he took them from their offense was in the 60s, and the year he was there went from the 60s to, I think it was 24th in the country. If he could have 25% of that happen at West Virginia, that means they're going to see an increase of 6 to 8 points a game. You add that to last year's team, they're a 1 or 2 loss team.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he's great, but I'm just thinking it's a good combination. They've got their pieces lined up for success.
Right.
And if JT can come in and have a good year, I think it's going to give Nico Marchiol a year to kind of, get to know the system, get comfortable, and I just have a feeling that next year it's going to be. I think they're going to be scary good within the next 3 to 4 years. I really do.
Yeah.
I can see
the Big
that.
12's wide open too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the even bigger thing is once Oklahoma and Texas officially leave, and I have a feeling that the Big 12 commissioner, that might be the big announcement, is that they're going to let them go next year without paying any exit fees. I think that's going to be part of it. I think they want to go ahead, get it done. Let's get them gone. Let's get them where they want to be, and let's focus on the Big 12 now.
Yeah.
And you can't do that until Oklahoma and Texas leave. So, I mean, I'm all for that. Let them go. They ain't got to pay crap. Just let them go. And let's just focus on the Big 12. I think that'll be probably part of his big announcements when he comes in on the 1st. Let's do that. Focus on the Big 12. And then you look at the Big 12 from top to bottom. West Virginia, it's a very manageable conference for West Virginia. I mean, really. So that's kind of my hot take. And y'all know how critical I am of the West Virginia Mountaineers. I'm a fan, but I mean, I'm super critical, but just watching the pieces that they put together and the product that it's starting to develop, they're on the right path.
I agree.
So what's going on out in Oklahoma, man? I haven't heard any Sooner talk. Tell us any dishes you got on Oklahoma football?
Yeah, well, I mean, Oklahoma's actually been the hottest team, at least recruiting wise, this whole month, all July, out of any team in the country. So Jackson Arnold has become now from a 4-star, converted from a 4-star to a 5-star in 247. They updated their rankings, so now he's a 5-star. But as of late, we've got PJ Abdawar. I can't pronounce his last name. It's PJ Abdawar, I think. But there's a lot of guys saying that he might be the most talented defensive recruit, or at least defensive line recruit, to come to Oklahoma in the last 15 years.
Oh wow!
And he's not even the highest defensive line recruit that Oklahoma is trying to get. So right now, David Hicks is in Norman right now, and he's a 5-star defensive end, or at least defensive lineman. I don't know if he's going to play in or tackle, but there's plenty of talk right now around Norman that there's going to be a flip between there's a team up in up north, or I guess I'd say up in Midwest, Midwest the country. I guess you could say the team's biggest fan is Rudy, and the kid's name is Arch Manning's uncle's first name. Peyton Bowen's going to flip to OU. It's going to happen. If it doesn't, then I will literally do whatever y'all want. Whatever y'all want me to do.
Shave your head.
I will do whatever y'all want to do. If he doesn't flip a commitment. I don't want him to sign. If he signs, awesome. But if he flips the commitment to OU, then yeah, he's going to do it. But if he doesn't flip, then yeah, I will shave my head. I will. He's going to flip it. Also, but
We
Ryan
won't hold
Yates
you to
too.
that.
Ryan Yates. So Ryan Yates, Peyton Bowen, and Jackson Arnold all go to I think it's Dayton Geyer out of Texas. I think y'all go to the same school together. They've all, Jackson Arnold's been trying to recruit them to OU ever since he committed, and I think he's going to land all three. And also Makari Vickers, he was actually crystal ball to Alabama for a whole. Actually, I think it's this whole entire semester. He was crystal ball to Bama. Bama took Caleb Downs. I think that's his name, Caleb Downs. He's a safety, I believe.
5-star safety.
Since Bama took him, Makari Vickers now being favored to OU. So OU right now has the 6th ranked class. I think is it 247 arrivals? I'm not sure.
247.
Is it 247? And literally a month ago, they were like what 35, 45.
Yeah, they were down in the mid 30s.
Yeah, I was very critical of them. I was like, man, that's terrible. And
Tim stepping out, man. Tim, thanks for joining us tonight, buddy.
I don't want to do the Irish goodbye and go blip, just blip out. So
I should have just kicked you.
you guys,
ready?
let's talk again soon. I'll see y'all.
All right, later, buddy.
But what did you think, McFly, when the number one player in Oklahoma committed to Michigan State?
So all right, so is it by Joe, right?
Yeah, by Joe, yeah.
And if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think he's actually from Oklahoma.
No, he's originally from Senegal, but he came
Right.
he played his high school ball at Norman, one of the academies there in Norman.
He played Community Christian in Norman. It's right down the street. It's right down the street from OU. I was disappointed, but I mean, like, he wasn't an Oklahoma boy at all. He was actually brought in by, I think, a family. I think I'm not sure. But I'm just glad he can go to Bama. He went to Michigan State. That's fine with me.
Yeah, he picked Michigan State over Bama, and OU as his finalist.
Who I'm still disappointed in OU not getting is Luke Haas. He's going to Arkansas. He's a very, very good tight end, and OU is going to regret not getting him. I guarantee it. They're going to regret it.
Well, let's change gears a little bit, guys. I want to kind of pose something to you, something else that's kind of a lot of hot talk at the moment. Let's talk about playoff expansion.
Ooh.
And talk about what would you like to see? We'll let McFly start. If you're fixing football playoffs, what do you do?
Nobody wants to hear it, but I would like an 18 playoff. The 6 power, or I'm sorry, the 5 Power 5 conference champs get in, automatic qualifier. 2 at large, which could be literally from the FCS or SEC loser, Big Ten loser, Pac-12 loser, Big 12 loser, and then 1 automatic qualifying from the group of 5. And I think I'd actually prefer that, and I would like to have I'd like to incorporate home team advantage, or I mean not home team, home field advantage, at least for 1 round.
Yeah.
All right, Marcus, what are your thoughts?
Pretty much everything McFly said. It either has to go to a 6 or an 18 playoffs. The playoffs have to expand. I'm gonna say the 18 playoff with the group of 5. Your 5. Your ACC, your Big Ten, your Pac-12, your SEC, and all those be your automatic qualifiers. And I think you should have 3 at larges.
Now, I've thought a lot about this, so I'm gonna talk for a minute. Y'all know me. I want to see a 12-team playoff.
Okay.
Depending on how many conferences we have, I think there's going to be 4. It might turn down to 3, but I want to see the top 4 teams, the 4 number ones or whatever, top 4 teams, they get a bye. The bottom 8 play each other. I would like to see that done like at a neutral site, like Jerryland. So you're going to have, 4 games over 2 days, Saturday and a Sunday, at a neutral field. Those 4 teams play, and then they go on the road to the top 4. That's where your bowl series starts, is there.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you would basically get, if you had, if you had 3 conferences, you could take the top 2 from each region. If you split them up and put them in it and rank it out. And I think it would be cool to, have like a selection show, where they bring them on to announce it. Like they could really make it exciting for the fans if you did it this way. And you could even move neutral sites from year to year. That way people have the opportunity to go wherever. But Jerryland, of course, that's holds more than anybody. And, just a really good place to do it. But that's kind of what I would like to see. I think that would completely end any conversations about who deserves to be in and who doesn't. I think at 8 teams, you're still going to be making arguments about 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9 and 10 and 11, because the margin is so small between those schools. Top 12, I mean, usually with the upper part of the top 25 and the lower part of the top 25, it's a big difference.
I mean, no matter how far you go, if you go 10, 12, 16, it's always going to be, what about that 13th team? What about that 17th team?
There's an issue with your volume. We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Sorry.
Oh,
so
see you, fellas.
You're out?
Yeah, Troy's crying.
All right. Later, buddy.
Later.
Love you, Troy. When it comes to like the amount of teams, wherever you have 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, there's always going to be that conversation about that 7th team, that 11th team, that 13th team, or that 17th team, because they're always going to be, they're just right there. They're good enough to do it. So it's always gonna. There's always gonna be that conversation. But actually, I like your idea a whole lot better than mine. I really do.
I think it would be exciting. Like I think it would put some of the, you know, March Madness really is the most
Yeah.
exciting. Like it is exciting. Like there's nothing
Yep.
better. The only other thing I found that's more exciting than that's playoff hockey. Playoff hockey. If you missed it this year, you missed some of the greatest shit you ever seen.
I'm not
But
into it yet. I'm trying to get into it, but I'm not into it yet.
I'll tell you what, the way to get into it is don't give crap about it until the playoffs and then start watching it because
That's
it was
funny.
great. It was awesome.
That's funny because that's how I approach college basketball. I don't give
Yeah.
a fuck about it until March Madness.
Well, and really, baseball's the same way. Football is the only sport where the fans really love the regular season. Like college football and pro football, we care about the season. Professional basketball, professional baseball, professional hockey.
Yeah.
Who cares about the regular season? Let's
Yeah.
have the playoffs. And college football, there is none of that buildup. Not
Right.
really.
Right.
You know, the four teams and those bowl series, that's fun, but there's really no buildup for the payoff. And
Right.
I mean,
Right.
Could you imagine 8 teams going to Jerryland to play 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday? The final 4 that come out go on the road to take on the 4 best teams in the country. Like, man, could you imagine how much those tickets would be?
Pretty cool.
How awesome it would be to watch.
It'd be awesome. It'd be very, very entertaining. Definitely.
Guys, if you're watching, be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We're on our way to 1,000 subs. We're almost there. I think we've got about 930 or 940 or so. It keeps going up. I can't keep up with it. But we'd love to hit that 1,000 before college football starts, guys. But
we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. Guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the night. We've been on for about an hour and a half. Appreciate everybody coming on. McFly, thanks for coming on. Tim, Mark, appreciate you guys. We're going to keep doing this. And guys, keep in mind, if I know you and you want to come on, we will bring you on. We can talk about anything you want to talk about football-wise, sports-wise. It's all good. But for us here at the 304 Podcast, I'm Sam the Man with my buddy McFly. Everybody have a good night and a good weekend.